Are you looking to secure your web exposed services with a strong multi-factor authentication? Well, you're in the right place. I'm going to show you how to do that with Authelia. What's up, Geek Army? Yes, it is Authelia Day today. If you are new to my videos, here's what we have done so far. We set up Docker on Proxmox unprivileged LXC. We mounted some remote folders. Then we built a Docker media server. Next, we added Traefik reverse proxy. And then finally, we made it even better with some middlewares. If you want to be a part of the step-by-step HomeLab journey, you know what to do. Please hit the like, subscribe and notification bell right below this video. And if watching videos is not your thing, then I have a detailed guide which we will be using as a reference today as well. And if reading the manual is not your thing, then I got you covered there as well with a deployer HomeLab automation script. Check it out if you're interested. If you have followed the videos above, so far we only have basic SMTP authentication. While it is better than nothing, it can be cracked with brute force. It's why I recommend you to put all your internet exposed services behind a strong multi-factor authentication system like Authelia. In simple terms, Authelia is like that bouncer at the entrance of your favorite bar or club. No proper ID, then sorry, no entry. But it has many advanced features including two-factor authentication, single sign-on, hardware key support, password resets, mobile push notifications, which I absolutely love, and much more. It is the trusty security sidekick for your HomeLab apps. So let's get started. Okay, here I am on my Proxmox web interface. Container number 800 is the ultimate Docker media server that I have been building in my past videos. That's exactly the container that we're going to continue to build, or the LXC container that we're continuing to build. It's exactly the same for a virtual machine or a bare bones system. So let me go back to my Mobax term. I'm already SSH'd into my ultimate Docker media server. If I do a DPS, which is my bash alias for sudo docker ps, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll put a link to the article in the description below. You can set up your bash aliases to speed up several commands like I do, and I'm going to be using some of those today. If you ever feel lost, use that link in the description below. So anyway, sudo docker ps, right here you can see containers running, Traefik, homepage, socket proxy, and then Jellyfin. All of these were set up in my past videos. The link to the playlist is in the description below. You can always go back and refer to it as well. Okay, so we're going to be using my Authelia Docker Compose Guide, which I just recently updated. In fact, just one week back. There were lots of changes in Authelia version 4.38, so I took my time to understand everything, and now this guide is up to date and we are going to be using that as a reference. Also, at the beginning of all of my guides, you will find a list of different steps that you can go through to build a whole home server, so use this as a reference if you're getting started. I also have links to relevant videos here. Okay, about Authelia. The point is, you're already here. That means you already kind of know what Authelia is, so I'm not going to go into a lot of details because I want to get through a lot of steps today. It does offer a lot of different features. One thing that I would like to focus is that Authelia can be installed in multiple ways, as local, as light, or full. Each of them is a slightly different configuration. For HomeLab purposes, where we do not have a lot of users, and the light installation is probably the best installation here. Of course, you can take it a little bit higher with MySQL database and then adding duo authentication, etc., that I will talk about later on this guide. So we're going to be using the light setup with the SQLite database, and it's perfect for 1 to couple of users in a HomeLab environment. Okay, moving on, just quickly, there are a few alternatives to Authelia. Once again, I don't mean to start a debate here, but there's Authelia, Google OAuth with Traefik forward authentication, which are the two that I use. In fact, I use Google OAuth a lot more for my personal services because I'm already logged into Google ecosystem. If you're really more privacy oriented than I am, Authelia is probably the best choice. In fact, compared to Keycloak or Authentic, Authelia is much more simpler to set up in my opinion. Of course, I will talk about Authentic at some point, but today let's focus on Authelia, which in my opinion is much more simple and better suited for a home lab. And as always, if you're interested in setting up the whole thing automatically, take a look at Deployer. Deployer automates the whole process of setting up Authelia. Everything we're doing today can be finished in just a minute or two by answering just a few simple questions. Of course, it can do a lot more as well, including setting up more than 60 apps automatically, all behind Traefik reverse proxy and with proper Let's Encrypt certificates. Try it out. It's another way to support my work and get something nice in return. Okay, continuing on. Here is where we start everything. So we're going to start following the steps from my guide as a reference. So the first step is to prepare the folders, right? So first we're going to prepare some folders. The commands are right here, so it's really easy to just copy paste. Obviously, you change my username Anand to whatever applies for you. Essentially what we're doing is creating an app data folder for Authelia, and then we're setting some permissions for it, and then we're ready to get started. So I'm gonna go over to my SSH environment right here, and let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. Go into app data, and I'm gonna make a folder called Authelia, and then from here on out I'm gonna copy paste these commands. Once again, be sure to change the permissions. So that's done, and then the next one right here. Now, it's not something that I invented. In fact, Authelia documentation really speaks about the permissions as well. So feel free to check Authelia documentation whenever you are confused or for more information. Here, I think I have it open right here. Authelia here. They have extensive documentation. It's very helpful. In fact, I encourage you to check it out even if you're just following this video or my guide. Okay, so let's get back in here. I executed all three commands, so the permissions for the Authelia folder should be set right now. So if I do an ls-al, there you go, you can see all the permissions as we just executed these commands right there. Okay, the first thing to do is to create the configuration files, the starter configuration file, which is called configuration.yaml. We're gonna copy the whole thing from this code block right here, and then we'll make changes to edit them as we go. Okay, I'm gonna create the file right now. So touch configuration.yaml. Okay, that file is ready, but instead of editing it right here, I'm going to use the SMTP browser from here on the left and go into that. And oh, actually I created it in the wrong location, so I will have to move it to the Authelia folder. So I just moved it, and let's go into Authelia folder and right click and edit it. Now I already copied the code, so I'm going to paste it right here. Okay, so the explanation for everything, once again, you can see that at every section I provided the link for additional description. So feel free to go back and read through the description, but we're going to start making some changes right now. There's really nothing to change here. We're making Authelia listen on all the network interfaces, which is what 0.0.0.0 means. You can skip the rest of it. Authelia logs will be stored in /config/authelia.log, and we're going to create a log file on the Docker host system and map it to this file, and that's where your log files are going to be available. Example.com. I like to use Simple-Homelab.com as my demo server, so I'm going to change this one to Simple-Homelab.com. And then scrolling on, you can see that I put placeholders where in future, if you prefer adding Duo for authentication, we'll talk about it in a little bit, you can put that code block right there. My article talks about it. For this video purposes, I think we're going to skip it just right for now, so we can keep the video to a relatively short length. Then moving on, authentication backend. Really not much to do here. If you can here you can disable password reset if it's just you or one or two people and you don't want to allow password reset, then you can set it to false. I set it to false. You can turn it on if you prefer. Users will go into the users.yaml file, which we will be creating next. Here is some information on what algorithms will be used to create the strong password. Okay, the next section is access control. Here's where you can find your access control. For example, right now we're going to set everything default to two-factor authentication. The first level of authentication would be Authelia username and password. The second level of authentication will be the one-time password code that we are going to set up in just a little bit. So let's change this to Simple-Homelab.com, and then here as well, Simple-Homelab.com. Now I noticed that I commented out a few different things here. Now if you want to disable authentication in a local connection from within your home network, you may do so. I will probably talk about it in a future video, or you can check out my guide. For now, we're going to keep this commented out. Session is where you define how long the authentication is valid. So in this case, you can see, remember me, is set for 1 month. So we're going to leave it at that for now. Feel free to play around with this one to your liking. Obviously, the shorter the session, more you will have to enter your OTP code to authenticate yourself. So I'm going to change this to Simple-Homelab as well. So let me copy this one and paste it here as well. So there you go. We made all those changes right now. Regulation, this is very important. You can login limit in case someone's trying to break in. So here it's set for 3 times in 10 minutes and they will be banned for 12 hours. So feel free to play with that as well. And lastly, as I mentioned, we're going to keep it simple. It's 1-2 users in a home lab, then the default SQLite database is more than enough. But if you have a lot of users, then look into maybe MariaDB, or even look into adding Redis to speed things up a little bit. Okay, so all of this I explained in my guide, and I'm going to touch on it just a little bit, but maybe not cover that in this video. The last point here is the notifier. Now, Authelia allows a SMTP. So if you have an SMTP server, then you can put those details right here. Once again, I speak about this in my guide. Here, we're going to skip it. We're going to send all notifications to this file here called notifications.txt, and we're going to use that in this guide as well. Now, by the way, as a side note, if you're looking for a free SMTP server, it's not really a sponsored message or anything. I use Brevo. They offer, I believe, 300 emails per day, so for free. So you might look into that if you're interested. Okay, so I think we made all the changes that we are supposed to. I'm just gonna do a quick scroll here and check. I think it's good. Well, if there are any error messages, we're gonna see it. Let me save this file. So we did that. Let's go back into my guide. Next, you can see all the explanations here in my guides. Feel free to read through and understand. Most of it I touched on already right now. Okay, then secrets. We're gonna create some secrets because Authelia needs some secrets to run. I already gave you the commands to use right here. All you have to do is just copy paste this right here. Just change the username. Obviously I have Anand there, and we're gonna paste it right here. I probably need to add sudo, or maybe not, because I'm using sudo later on right here. So let's just hit enter and see what happens. So I'm going to type in my password. This is automatically going to create that secret and save it in this file right here. So if I elevate myself to sudo and go to Docker and secrets and do an ls-al, you're going to see the Authelia JWT secret, and this secret right here, it should be in this file. I'm not going to open and check it. Now there are the other two secrets that you see here were created in my previous videos, so we're going to be creating a few more secrets. So let's go back in here and copy paste these here, storage encryption key, and paste it right here, and this should create another secret. Let's check. There you go. You can see Authelia storage encryption key, and then the last one, we're going to copy this one more time and paste it here. Okay, so we created the secrets. Now I'm not going in and explaining all of this stuff. The command right here just basically creates the random key that Authelia wants us to create. Now of course this exact same thing is described in their documentation as well. I'm just giving you the commands to do it in an easier way. Okay, all right, so moving on here, we need to ensure that the secrets are in fact kept secret. So let's do an ls-al. At this point, all the secrets, as you can see, are owned by root and root, but I do not like something that I see right here. In fact, the group also has read-write access. I don't want to do that. So let's change. So if you copy paste these commands here, that should automatically change the permissions for all files, but let's do it slightly differently. So sudo chmod 600, I'm going to say star because I also want to change the permissions for other files here. So now if I do -al, all of them are set to right permissions. If you run these commands, only the Authelia stuff will be set to the right permissions. Okay, so here you can also see a picture of how everything should look like. You can see there's duo API secret key, and then there's probably one more SMTP password. Obviously, we're not going to be doing that today, but if you created those at a later point, this is how it's going to look like. Okay, now that we created those secrets, we'll have to add it to our Docker Compose file. Okay, so for this, we're going to copy this part right here. You can ignore the rest and open the Docker Compose file using, we're going to browse from the SMTP browser right here. Here's the Docker Compose file. I already opened it and it's open right here. Now, if this Docker Compose file does not look familiar, I strongly urge you to look at my Ultimate Docker Media Server video. The link will be somewhere here. Look up for it or find it in the description below. This Docker Compose file, the way I like to set it up, I break down all of my individual services into their own compose files that you can see here. This compose file is like a master file that pulls all the individual Docker Compose files into one big file. Okay, so here you can see all the different 5 services that I have. They have their own compose files and I'm calling them here, and this would be the master index file, whatever you want to call it. We're going to paste the secrets right here. You can see I already have some secrets. We already created those. Now we're calling those secrets here. Let's save this file, go back to my guide and continue from there. Next, we're going to create users. Okay, so once again, so let's copy this part right here and then we'll start making changes to it. Go back to the terminal. I'm going to exit out of being root. Go to Docker, app data and Authelia, and let's create the new file, users.yaml. So touch users, or you know what, I could do it from here too. So I'm going to go in here, Authelia, I'm going to right click and create a new empty file, users.yaml, and right click that, and we're going to edit it and paste this stuff. Oh, I didn't copy the right stuff, so let's go back in here, copy it one more time, paste it. So we did that. So now we're going to start making some changes to it. Obviously, what is the username that I want to use? Anand. This is enabled, so I'm going to leave it as false. So next one would be display name. This one can be a little bit tricky. If you have space in your name, use an underscore instead. This has tricked me a few times, and a few of my users on the Discord server as well have faced this. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, check out my Discord server. We have several hundred people, more than 1,000 people right now, about 1,500 people. We're talking about all kinds of stuff, including these things. Reach out, it's quite active, and people are very helpful if you are facing issues. For now, I'm gonna just say it Anand, no space. And email really doesn't matter, so I'm gonna just use anand@a.com. Again, we're not going to be using this email, so it really does not matter what you give here. Now, password is something that's tricky. Well, here is the command that you're supposed to use to create the password. It's hashed password, so that means it's going to be obfuscated or encrypted. So here's the command that we're going to use, and Authelia is going to hash the password for us. Now, you will have to make some changes here, obviously, because you can see if I scroll to this command, essentially it's creating a Docker container of Authelia and using the configuration file we just created, which is supplied to it, and it's creating a new password using the algorithms that are specified in the configuration file. Okay, so I'm going to copy this one over. Obviously, you'll have to change the username or path to the configuration file so it reflects your situation. So let me paste that here. Here's the command. I'm going to go back and change the password to whatever I want to call it. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to say Anand. Let's say Anand Bass. Oh, come on. Anand password. Okay, so that's it. If I hit enter, it's going to pull the Authelia image and start hashing the password for us. Now what we want is this part right here. Okay, so right from the $, till the end. Let's copy that part right here, and we're gonna paste it where the Authelia password should go, and that's it. Save it. We are done creating the users file. So let's go back to my guide and continue. If you want to add additional users, you can check out this section right here. Obviously, it's only for members. If you have followed this guide so long, obviously there's something that you really like, please like, subscribe, and more than that, consider becoming a member. I do not put essential content behind a paywall because I don't believe in it. I'm here to teach and share what I learned so far. So this is just a bit of extra. Now, if you're only one user, you don't even have to do this. You just keep reading and following the guide. Okay, so let's move on. Now we create a lot of different things. Now we just need to create some bits of code for Traefik to start using Authelia. The first thing is to create a middleware. Okay, so let's copy this part right here and head over to my Mobax term. Now we're going to go into the Traefik folder, rules folder, and UDMS, and we're going to create a middleware here. Here you can see I really like to name my file providers. If you don't know what a file provider is, check out my Traefik playlist. I have several videos on Traefik explaining every single thing about it. I highly recommend check it out. Link will be in the description below, or you'll find it on my channel. So middlewares are the ones that start with the word middleware. Okay, chains are the ones that start with the word chain, and I have a few other things. I won't cover that right now. So let's call this middlewares.authelia. Okay, so we're working on Authelia. So I created that file. Now it really does not matter what you call the file. It matters what you have inside the file, because the file name doesn't really matter actually. This is what matters. We're calling the Authelia middlewares-Authelia. That's what is more important. So it refers to the Authelia container, which is listening at 9091 port number. Now this is the environment variable that we are passing through. So this will be domain name _1. Why that? If I go back to my Traefik Docker Compose, and I explained this in my past videos, we are passing through the variable domain name _1, which is the name of our domain, into the Traefik container. So Traefik will know that this refers to the domain name, in this case Simple-Homelab.com. So let's save this. We just created Authelia middleware. You know what, let's go ahead and use this opportunity to go into Traefik dashboard, and if I go to HTTP and middlewares, you're gonna see middlewares Authelia right there. If I go into it, you're going to see all the different things that are listed in it. So it's Traefik already picked it up. Okay, so let's go back to the guide. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create the chain, copy this, we're gonna create a new chain. Again, I spoke about this in one of my past videos. Middleware chain simplifies or takes a bunch of different middlewares and puts them in a chain. Just makes it look nicer when we start using it in our services. Okay, so let's head over to the same folder, create a new file, chain Authelia. Once again, doesn't really matter what you call the file, what goes inside is what matters. So copy paste. The chain is going to be called chain-Authelia, and what is it going to have? Rate limit middleware, secure headers middleware, and middlewares-Authelia that we just created. Now all of these middlewares are already existing here. You can see those, and we created those in my past videos. Okay, so we created the chain for us to use in our services. If you're still here, then please like and subscribe, but more importantly, support my work by becoming a member and help me continue doing what I am doing. It takes a ton of work, and I guarantee you that you will not find anything else that puts everything together and tells a story like my video series does. I sincerely appreciate all of you guys who chose to support me so far. Let's keep moving. And that's it. Now we're actually ready to finally put the Docker Compose file together. If you scroll down a little bit more, here you will find the Docker Compose file. I'm gonna copy the whole thing and go to my Mobax term into the Compose folder. I like to put all of my Compose files into the Compose folder. Let's create a new one, authelia.yaml. and I'm gonna open this one up and paste what I just copied over. Okay, so to do that, I copied it over. Let's do a once over, just make sure everything's ready. Now you can use profiles, but I'm going to comment it out right now. I use profiles for some automations. We don't need it right now, so I'm going to comment it out. We don't really need to expose Authelia port, so I'm going to leave it commented out. Let's say you have another Traefik instance and you want to use the Authelia in a different machine for authentication purposes. In that situation, I would expose the port so you can use Authelia from a different machine for authentication purposes. Okay, so for now, we don't need that, so I'm going to leave it commented out. Here is where we're passing the Authelia folder as /config inside the container of Authelia, and then you have some environment variables. These are the 3 secrets that we just created already, and we're calling those 3 secrets right here as well. And then there are a few that are commented out. Again, as I said, these are, once you start reading through the rest of the guide, you can add MariaDB, Redis, you can add Duo for push notifications. All of this is explained in my guide, so we're not using those right now, so let's keep it commented out. The only other change I would make here is this part right here. Our domain name is called _1, so I'm changing that right now. One thing that I've seen many people make a mistake on is this part right here. We're going to use chain-no-auth for the Authelia service itself. This is important. If you copy paste codes from my GitHub repo, make sure that you pay attention to this one, right? Okay, so let's save this. I don't think there is anything else that we need to do. And then what we need to do is now add Authelia to our index file or the master Docker compose file. So let's do that. And okay, I just added that file. Now, if I start my stack, Authelia should start already. We're going to do that and test. Let's just make sure that there's nothing else. Once again, you can read through my guide. I have a lot more explanation in there than what I'm saying right now, so feel free to read through it. We already completed all of the steps. We're gonna now start Authelia and look for log messages that we see right here. It should look something like this, so let's do that. I'm going to be using my bash alias, so that's going to be just DC up, and this is basically Docker Compose up. And that should start the stack. You can see Authelia is being created. So now let's follow the logs and check it out. And DC logs, Authelia would show me the logs. And that looks very similar to what we saw in the message there. So Authelia is up and running. So let's go and check login. Authelia.Simple-Homelab.com was the URL that used. Voila, there you go. So we have Authelia ready. So I'm gonna log in. Oh, I do not remember the password that I used, so I think it was on password. Yes, we're in. Okay, so I don't want this, so there you go. So first thing you need to do is register the device that you're logging in from. So right here is the button. So you hit the register button and you go into one-time password and you click on that. Now what happened is that a one-time password has been sent to your email, but we don't have an email or a valid email, plus we don't have an SMTP server that was passed on to Authelia. So this is where all the notifications, as you remember, are being stored in a text file in the Authelia folder. So let's go in there and we're going to right click on that notifications.txt file, and if I open that right here, you can see the one-time passcode that was sent to you. Then I'm going to just copy that right now and go back into the same window and paste it and verify. And that's it. Our device was now verified. Now if I go in here, it's going to show me the QR code for registering your OTP. So I'm going to use Auth. You can use whatever authenticator that you want. I'm using Auth just because I can sync it across different devices. You can use Google Authenticator, whatever you prefer, or even Duo for that matter. So I just saved it. I'm going to hit next and put in the code that I see right here. and that's it. I am in. So now we have Authelia good and running. It's ready for us to add it to different services. How do we do it? So we're gonna be using or reuse some of the stuff that I did in my past videos. So let's head over to some of the services. I see that homepage is running. Also have Dozel running, Jellyfin running, Portainer. Let's take Portainer for example. Now I did explain in my Traefik video that Portainer does not work well with basic authentication, but it does work well with Authelia. In fact, you can go one level above and add Authelia inside of Portainer, so you can completely eliminate Portainer's native login and just use Authelia for logging in as well with OAuth. I'm not going to cover that today, but that is available for you as an option if you want to do. So for now, how do we put Portainer behind Authelia? It's very simple. Right now you can see that it's behind chain-no auth. We're going to change it to chain Authelia, which is a chain that we created previously. So let's save this, and if I'll get out of the screen. So let's save this and head over to my terminal. I'm going to do a decomp, and it's going to recreate Portainer because we just made a change to its Docker Compose. This is normal, so let's wait for it to be done. When it's done, we're going to head over here and go. Well, in fact, I will have to use incognito mode because I'm already logged into Authelia there. So we're going to go to portainer.simplehomelab.com. And I see the Authelia login screen. Great. So now we're going to do the same thing. And password. And I should be in right now. So let's put in the OTP code. And that's it. Here you can see the double login I just mentioned. So if you're interested, go into Authelia and then set up OAuth, and then Authelia becomes your default login for Portainer. Okay, so let's do one more thing. We saw how to put a service that already is running in the same stack as Authelia behind Authelia, which is using the Docker labels. How do we put a service that's running in a different machine behind Authelia? Let's see how to do that very quickly. So for this, we're going to be using my GitHub repository that you see here. I have lots of different things here. You can see almost 3,000 people have started. There's many different things in here. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's my real setup that I'm running right now. I combine all the information from all of my Docker hosts and put it out here so you guys can see what I'm using rather than just giving you some boilerplate examples, you know. So here you go. So let's go into the Traefik folder, which is an app data, and Traefik right here. You can see a lot of different examples here, file providers. So you can see Authelia and AdGuard Home is listed here as an example. So why don't we just pick that one up? So I'm gonna click on that. Here is the example. So I will copy this right here, and let's create a Traefik file provider to put my AdGuard Home that's running in a different machine behind Authelia. So let's go back in here. We're going to be going into the Traefik 3 folder and rules folder, UDMS. Let's create a new one called app AdGuard home.yml. Again, the name does not matter. I like to prefix my file providers that are for an app or a service running in a different machine this specific way, so I know what this file provider is for. So you can feel free to do what you prefer. So I'm going to open that and copy that over. We have to make some changes. The name is going to remain AdGuard. I'm going to use AG as the subdomain. Domain name should be changed to 1. It's web secure entry point. We're going to be using chain Authelia so we can enable Authelia for AdGuard Home web interface. Everything else remains the same. Now here we'll have to change the IP address. So I think it's 192.168.1.102 and the port number is 80. So I save this. Now if I head over to my Traefik right here and look at some of the routers, you can see it already picked up AdGuard Home. So let's open once again. Maybe I should close this and open incognito so you can see. Now if I go to ag.simplehomelab.com, I should see Authelia. There you go. The login process is essentially the same, so I'm not going to show it right now. Now, just a few closing things. We're already done, but just a few closing things because I want to leave you with some enhancements that you can do to your own setup. So we went through all of this process that was described in my guide. So if you're ever lost, use this as your reference. Now, there are ways to conditionally bypass authentication. If you want to do that, that's possible. I speak about it in a different guide. I'll put the link in the description below, or you can read through what's in here and you will probably find a reference to that. Okay, so we did all of what we're seeing right there. Now, Authelia enhancements. Okay, first, Redis. Now, if you have a multi-user environment and you want to speed things up, Redis is a good addition. So here's the code block that you can use to add Redis. Now, obviously, you should have Redis service enabled and running so you can use Redis. I'm not going to look at it right now, but that's available for you if you want to do that. And it's all explained here anyway. So then once again, in a multi-user environment, you probably need a better database than SQLite. Maybe look into MariaDB, and if you do have one running, so here's how you can add this to your configuration. I think in the configuration file I have placeholders on where these things need to go. Just look into the placeholders and replace those placeholders with this code block right here. Okay, and the last one, I believe, is the email notifications. If you do have an SMTP server and you don't like the notifications.txt, you can add the SMTP details from right here. Actually, I like, there's one more. Now, one thing I really like about Authelia is that it supports push notifications from Duo. What does that mean? So if you're trying to log in, instead of typing in the OTP code, you will just see this notification pop up on your mobile screen, and you can just tap the actions and approve it right from there. You don't need to type in any code. So if this is convenient and you want to set it up, I explain it right here. You will have to create an app in your Duo account, use the API credentials to set it up. Here's the code block to add. All the explanation links that you need are already here. All right, that was it. We made it through. It was a little bit long, but now we have Authelia protecting our home lab and all of our services. It's very simple, as you just saw. In my next video, I'm going to be covering Google OAuth as another way of protecting your services. So if you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and come back for that next video. And hit the notification bell so you know when that next video comes out. Also, check out some of the membership options I have. I know I sound like a broken record, but your support means a lot to me. So please consider becoming a member if you like what I'm doing. Otherwise, this is the end of this video. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in my next video. Go Geek Army.